Hello, and welcome to the KOSH. I'm your host, Timber Smith. Once again, another great week, another great Saturday morning. KOSH listeners, I'm super excited to be here with you. I hope you're excited to be listening. Let me just do the intro. The KOSH is a podcast that spotlights people who have had an association with the Oshkosh or the surrounding Fox Cities area. I usually give you the weather report or what's going on. And this morning, I'm super excited because it is gorgeous. I've already hit the park. Bosco, the podcast dog, has already taken some time. He's done his thing. Did a full park walk. I do believe it is the day before Father's Day. And so I was out in the park and I was wondering what's going on, but I think this is Battle of the Bago weekend.
It is.
I saw all of these fishermen, and you know what? I was jealous. I wanted to be about that life. I think I got to, hey, first of all, if y'all know me, I'm scared of water. And number two, I don't do boats, not very often. You've got to be a pretty trusty friend to get me on a boat. And there's only a few who've ever done it in my lifetime. But nonetheless, there is the dream of it. I like the concept of being out on the water and fishing, but I'm perfectly happy with a lawn chair and sitting on the Fox River bank catching catfish. That's right, about that life. I even have a catfish fishing. I have a fisherman alias. That's right.
What's the alias?
Moonshine Slim.
There you go.
Moonshine Slim is my catfish fisherman alias. All right. And if you haven't noticed, once again, you already know I got an amazing guest this week. Always. I continue to get amazing people who want to be part of the KOSH. And actually, they're super interested in connecting with you, the KOSH listeners. And so this week's guest, without further ado, let me make sure I got everything together here. This week's guest is Jacob Floam.
You got it.
Did I get it right?
You got it.
See,
you got it.
I got it right this time, y'all KOSH listeners. I did not even phonetically spell it out, nor did I ask him previous to this. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and give this a shot and hope that I don't slaughter it.
There you go.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Bruh.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
Doing good. Allergies are bothering me still a little bit.
Yeah?
But I'm doing good. It's a beautiful morning. A little bit cooler out than it was.
It is a little bit cooler. A little bit cooler than I might have expected, but it is a little cooler. But you know, it's perfect hoodie weather.
Yes.
You know what else I think it is? I think it's perfect farmer's market weather.
It is. It's out there right now.
Yeah, I know, right? If it wasn't for the fact, I might have to rethink my whole scheduling during the summer for recording the KOSH episodes, because I really want to go to the farmer's market.
It's really cool because when I wake up in the morning on Saturdays, my apartment overlooks the farmer's market, which is really cool to see. So we can see all the vendors out there. We can take a look at, what's going on before we kind of get a preview of what the atmosphere looks like before we show up.
So you already know.
It's right there.
It's right there.
Plus, you don't have to park. Park contain us over there. So you can just walk right over.
If you really know the secrets, there's secret places to park. If you know the KOSH,
there's always a way. There's
definitely a way. And you can park, it's one block.
Exactly.
Just go one block back, and you're in good shape. I have a weakness, particularly why for the farmer's market and why I like to go. There is this one vendor that's over there in front of the coffee shop that serves these burritos.
Okay.
Oh my God. These burritos are fire.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Bruh. Yeah.
So good.
They are so good.
I think he had a chorizo breakfast burrito.
He does have one.
Oh, it's so good. There's another one that I'd like to kind of shout out. I forgot the name of it. My girlfriend likes it a lot, and I love it. She's a home baker in Menasha, and she shows up to the farmer's market every Saturday, and she makes this really good jalapeno cheddar sourdough loaf.
Oh,
and that stuff is dangerous, man.
Is it?
Oh, it is so good.
Just as
so
is.
good.
Are you just eating bare carbs as is, man?
I try to put other stuff on it. I bought some summer sausage, put some horseradish down, and then slap that on there for an open faced sandwich. But sometimes put it with my eggs. Sometimes I'm just bored and lazy. I'll just eat it as is. So it's a weakness. It's real good though.
Oh, all right. You might have to. Okay, I'm calling you out. Farmers market field trip. Now you gotta understand. Part of the KOSH is if you bring it up, I might ask to be part of that.
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to show me where this is at.
Oh yeah.
For me, this morning, before I got on, I noticed there was a Facebook post. Shout out to my man Morgan, is out there serving up libations, Bloody Mary libations this morning in front of the Gibson, and I was like,
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to go be part of that.
Oh yeah.
Just so. All right. So, Jacob,
Yes, sir.
can you please share a little something about yourself and what is your connection to the KOSH?
So I live in Oshkosh, but it's a little bit of a long story how I got to Oshkosh.
Oh, let's go down this path.
So originally, my whole mom's side of the family, they're in the area. So I got my uncle up in Fox Crossing, my grandmother's in Neenah, I got a second cousin in Berlin. But they originally all were in the East Troy area, down in the southern part of the state. My mom was, obviously born and raised in Wisconsin, but she went to UW-Madison and then left Wisconsin and worked on Capitol Hill in D.C. for, I think, from 1985 till about 2000 in a bunch of different roles. But she met my dad out there.
Oh.
And they met on a blind date in 1994.
Okay.
So then I was actually born, and my two sisters, they were born in the D.C. area, but I've been coming up to this area in one way or another since I was a baby. And something clicked in me when I was in college. I'm like, I want to move out there. That's where I want to be. This is my place. And right after college, that's what I did. Now, there was a little bit of a path that got there, and it has something to do with COVID, which is really interesting. So I was living in Madison at the time when COVID started. I was out there for an independent study program for the last semester of college, and I was out in college at Fordham University out in the Bronx, on Little Italy part of the Bronx, which was a fantastic experience. But I was in Madison at the time, and I actually never got to go back that year for my graduation. So I eventually had a graduation the year after. It was one of those delayed graduations.
Right.
But during that time, I thought, okay, I'd like to be a little bit closer to my family, so I moved up to Oshkosh. It was kind of real close to where my family was. It was a place that I had obviously been to a bunch of times, and I said, well, you know what? This is where I'm going to be. And I haven't looked back. It's been amazing. I've been living in Wisconsin for about 3 years now, but I've been in Oshkosh for 2. And I can always say that this is probably my favorite place around. I'm not going anywhere. The city itself is a hidden gem. I'll say it that way.
Facts.
It really is. I think certainly one thing, and the city really punches above its weight in terms of population, I think. We have a lot of things here that bigger cities don't have.
And we do it well.
We do it very well. I do have a couple of shout outs, but one of the ones I would say is
shout outs are all show long.
Yeah.
Hey, don't let me ruin a good time.
So there's probably, and the biggest thing I can say is to kind of say that the city punches above its weight is, so my future aunt, she's getting married to my uncle in September. Her name is Erin Bame, and she runs Jazz Fest down here. And that's just one example of many things. Jazz Fest this year, I think, is going to be the weekend after Labor Day. So mark off your calendars. It's right on Main Street. Yeah. But it's something that cities much larger than that, sometimes you'll struggle to find that. And it's all right there.
I want to go. I haven't gone yet, but I know about it, but I still want to go.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this year, the headliner is Scary Pockets. They are I think they're a cover band, but they do a lot of collaboration work. So there's going to be a bunch of vocalists there. I'm not sure about the entire details. I don't want to spoil it for Aaron, but they're going to be there this year, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Bring a lawn chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that is coming up, and that should be a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, 2 years into the KOSH.
Yeah.
Well, good. We're going to get to I always love both ends of the spectrum. I love a fresh set of eyes.
Sure.
And then I love, that old school
right.
Local who's been around for a really, really long time and knows some of the the hidden nooks and crannies. So I'm excited about this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so ready to jump into the first segment?
Let's go for it.
First segment is what in the world is going on with. This is where you start with the phrase what in the world is going on with, and you tell us what's on your mind.
So the thing that's on my mind that I can't get out of my head are real estate transfer fees. And I know this sounds super, super wonky, but it has something to do with local government. So I sit on the county board. I sit on District 16, which is representing the university and parts of downtown. And the problem we're having with real estate transfer fees is this was something that was brought up in one of the committees. In 1981, the state passed a law which said, so all the taxes and fees from a real estate sale used to be split by the locality, the county, and the state 50-50. So Winnebago County would get 50%, state of Wisconsin would get 50% on those taxes. In 1981, they changed it to Winnebago County and all the counties in Wisconsin only get 20%, and the state gets 80%.
Whoa.
Now, the problem with that is that counties themselves are the baseline face of state government and state statute. We provide a lot of services that the state requires us to provide.
Right.
You know, like things like child support, ADRC, human services, veteran services, roads we're responsible for.
Absolutely.
Parks. And when somebody buys a house, I mean, it's just my idea that maybe the county would give 50% and the state would give 50%. But no, the state decided to get 80% and then stuck us with more programs that we have to do. And they're not providing us money for it. So what there was is that Jefferson County passed a resolution saying, hey, we would like the state to address this and be 50-50 again. And we passed that. And that's just, I asked the chairman of the board, I said, how did it even get there? And he said, I have no idea how it got there. I have no idea why they did that. It just seems like a money grab. So that's what it was. That's what's on my mind today.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
It's the nuances of things like that.
Yeah, it is, because that's something that I never thought that it was that way.
Right.
And there's probably a lot more that you see like that. And I think the thing is that a lot of people really miss the forest for the trees. They look at like the big sparkly things like in Washington and in Madison and whatnot. But
right.
in reality, the thing that affects you most day to day is right here.
Right.
Right here in City Hall, right here on the county board. It's right here, man.
All right.
That's what affects you the most.
Well, no, local government is it's your everyday.
Oh, it is.
It's your everyday by far. And, my whole thing with that is I would like 50% to go here for the services that is assisting my neighbors here. Because that's the stuff that really matters.
Right. Exactly. And there's a lot of stuff that we're required to do.
Absolutely.
By state statute. Like, I can give you another example. There's an old boathouse, I guess if you can call it a boathouse. It's on Broad Street. And it's at the end of Broad Street, and the sheriff's department has a boat out there that they're required to put on Lake Winnebago for search and rescue.
Right.
So the issue is that thing's fallen apart. And it's been that way, I don't know, it's been that way for a long time.
Right.
The problem is that there was only one bidder on the project, and they knew they were the only bidder on the project. So it's going to cost us a lot of money to replace literally just a boat lift and shed. And that's it. And we're really not getting any assistance for it. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there are certainly some times where the state will throw in extra money for a statutorily required program, but more often than not, we're stuck with the bill. And that means property taxes, levy limits, it can get messy. It definitely can be. Okay.
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a little bit wonky, but that's
no, nothing wonky about that. I think, I'm always like, I think we assume a lot of things as residents of the community about how the government or local government, and sometimes we don't even know the difference. Like, we don't know the difference between the municipality, the county, the state, and federal. Like, we're just assuming, you know what I mean?
It just is.
Yeah. It just is, and you don't even understand who's in charge of what. And if it wasn't for my job that I have now, I can say that I was highly ignorant of the difference in a lot of cases too. But now I'm starting to really see those differences.
There's a lot of it. I mean, we could talk about it all day, man. I mean, there are all sorts of things that, the differences and the fact that, we're responsible for a ton of roads, and we're responsible for managing our section of 41. And so when it gets down to that, it's not, the mysterious federal government. I mean, it's your neighbors who are working the highway department and your neighbors who are on those boards and commissions. So it's all important to keep track of.
It is super important to keep track of. Okay. Here's my thing. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do my what in the world is going on with. Sure, yeah. So I got several things going through my head.
Okay.
But where I think I'm going to go is what in the world is going on with the January 6th commission. And here's my deal. It's not that deep, y'all. I come back to this conversation, not that long ago we had Lakeisha Hayes here on there, and she had made a statement about like it's not about the politics of it, or it was along the lines like that in her position that she was formerly in. It's always about the evidence. And that's where I'm at. I'm just like, there comes a point where you just have to admit that there's overwhelming evidence. Like it just is what it is. You can try to find the different things and try to nuance it or be hopeful, but there's just a point where all the puzzle pieces actually fit, and you just got to come to terms with it, whatever that is. And I'm watching this, and I'm not watching it like closely, but I'm enamored a bit with it, because I do think it's fascinating that we got to this point and we're not unified in just trying to get to the truth and making sure that whatever our laws are actually enforced, that justice is carried out across the board, just fairly, just as an everyday citizen kind of thing. Like at the point in which there's favoritism and justice, it's no longer justice. And then you might as well just toss it all out the window.
And I think you look at things that damage the public trust. I know it's the anniversary of Watergate as well, or roughly or close to it. And I think that makes citizen participation in committees, commissions, and boards all the more difficult.
Absolutely.
Because, we as neighbors are supposed to trust each other. We have to. We really don't have a choice.
We have to.
Right? And so things that happen on the larger stage can really, you see there's a lot of divisiveness, there's a lot of fighting, and so it's really, the public trust is something that's important to be preserved.
Right.
And so things that happen that damage the public trust, you see it, and then it makes local government a little bit more difficult.
Well, all of government difficult.
Yeah, especially on the local level, because, people have ideas about each other.
Yes.
Kind of going into things.
Yes.
And then what your idea of someone may be turns out to be completely different. And, because especially on the county board, there are people who have very different opinions, very, very different opinions.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a choice, so we have to work together. And when, those things can form predisposed notions in people's heads.
Right.
And so when you show up and then you're kind of like bracing for a fight, and then it doesn't make it effective.
Yeah. What I don't like about that scenario, as you're talking about, is like you're not operating from a point of saying this person does represent the views of others in that community, and we need to consume them all. We need to validate all of those views and come to some answer, in the middle. Whatever that looks like, or whatever that is, or where it's at least consciously considered and it's just not automatically ignored.
Right. And, there are people who so I'm on one committee and I'm on the county board. The committee that I'm on is the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee.
Okay.
And so basically that is a big committee because it has to do a lot with justice, law enforcement, and whatnot, but also rules of the board, ordinance changes, and all that stuff. So from that, you have a lot of different viewpoints. And that's an important place to bring those different viewpoints. And I think the best thing that we can do is to really just meet people where they're at and see it's like, okay, you need to make a holistic decision.
Yes.
There are people who have, when you look at a policy decision, especially in terms of, like, there was one that actually the DA mentioned. It was really interesting. This is a program. It's not quite ready yet, but it's an idea. It's kind of in the works. It's currently inmates in county jail and in state prison. There is a program, and I'm not exactly sure how it's exactly going to work, but to give them CDL training, so that once your sentence is over, then you're ready to get a job because you're equipped with that CDL, and there's a shortage of drivers.
Huge shortage.
Yeah. And so automatically right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, I hope it works out. We'll see what happens.
I actually think there's multiple professions that could be utilized for.
Oh yeah.
And I think that would be big on how we bring those individuals back into society. I like that answer. I just like the answer where let's get them trained and give them once they pay their due to society, they deserve the right to have a fair shot at the American dream too.
Of course they do. Of course.
They're human.
Right. Just like you or I, and it's if one of us were in that situation, we would want another shot. Of course we would.
Yeah.
And so that's, that aspect I find very interesting. There's another aspect, and I don't mean to get a little bit heavy, but we had 59 overdoses in this county in the past month. Half of those were people under 20. And you think it's those are people that, when you think of that number, you think it's just, out in the ether, right? But those are your neighbors.
Yep.
Those are people you see every day.
Yep.
Those are, their family members and their friends.
Yep.
And that's something that is really heartbreaking. It really is. There's just no other way to put it, and kind of the approach on, and to be honest with you, we're a little bit constrained on what we can do on the local level. But in my opinion, the best thing we can do is just watch out for people and check in on your neighbors and whatnot, because you really have no idea what other people are going through in their own heads, the battles they're fighting, those kinds of things. You have no idea unless if you talk to them.
Be a good neighbor. And sometimes that just helps. It's that it could be that one conversation, or maybe it's just that one hello. Maybe it's that one smile. There's so many different things.
Sure.
That can affect the human psyche.
Of course. Yeah. And it doesn't cost you any extra to be nice to people. It doesn't cost you a dime, to be nice, to be gregarious, and to ask them how their day is going. Because like I said, you don't know what people are going through. And so that extra, hey, how you doing, man? Stuff like that, it could make a huge difference. And you may never know it.
Facts.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. All right, KOSH listeners, we are going to take a quick second here. And you know what? I'm not going to do this all the time, but I'm going to do it this time because I'm so excited. KOSH listeners, I've been asking for someone to come and allow us to do an ad. Like, come do an ad with us. Let's do an ad. And guess what? I finally had a taker. And so at this time, let's roll this thing. This thing is, and I'm super proud of this. So let's do it.
Hi, I'm Dawn Gulke, the Executive Director of CASA of the Fox Cities. Science proves that one consistent adult can change the story of a child. Could that one person be you? Become a court-appointed special advocate. Build a relationship with a child, help identify their needs, and give that child a voice in a process that can otherwise feel lonely. Contact us today. Children who have experienced abuse and neglect can't wait. Learn more about CASA of the Fox Cities at casafc.org or call Leah at 920-257-4733.
All right, KOSH listeners, how cool was that? Once again, if you're interested at all in creating an ad here for the KOSH, please don't hesitate to reach out at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. Jacob, what you think about that?
That's a good ad.
It's a good ad.
Good ad. Yeah.
It's a great organization.
Oh, yeah. I mean, volunteering is probably one of the best things somebody can do. I mean, I love volunteering. You know, for example, the Knights of Columbus group I'm a part of, we're having a brat fry this afternoon.
Oh.
So it's on the festival, the Brat Barn on 21. I'll be there from 2 to 5 today. So I'm going to buy. So it's one of my favorite things to do.
Well, they won't be able to, only unless, because by the time this is released. But I love the fact that you were selling it like we were live.
Retroactive brat fry.
That's right, the retroactive brat fry. All right, we're going to jump into the next segment, and the next segment is word association. This is your opportunity. I'm going to say a word, and you tell me what comes to mind. First word is always food.
Oh, okay. So I love to cook.
Oh.
I love to cook. So when I was in college, I lived right off of Arthur Avenue in Little Italy in the Bronx. And there was a lot of, you would have, a cheesemonger, you'd have a butcher, you'd have a guy who sells fish, you have a guy who specializes in poultry, and kind of all that kind of like old world market stuff.
Yeah.
Really kind of inspired me to just start cooking. So before I got there, I'm like, okay, I know how to like cook ramen, I guess, and some eggs. Right? But
eggs and ramen. That tells us a lot.
But it's trial and error. I mean, the best thing you can do with it is just keep trying. And there's a lot of stuff I've burnt. There's a lot of stuff that I've tasted. I'm like, oh, why did I even try doing that? Right? But it's a hobby for me, and I absolutely love doing it. Probably my favorite. And there I learned primarily Italian food, but also, in that part of the city, there is a lot of Albanians, a lot of Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. So it's a whole different flavor profile and package that you can take a look at. And it was just cool just like going into those places. One of the things I miss is those corner bodegas, those delis. Oh, those are so good.
I love the videos that they have like out where like they're making like sandwiches, and they're these really unique sandwiches, and they're just cutting the stuff straight out the deli and frying it up on like their Blackstone or their flat grill, and like,
it's so good.
It looks good.
It's so good. One of my favorite things was after I would go on a run, I would finish up and then take my stuff, and there was a bodega right near my apartment there at the time, and I would always get lamb over rice, really good stuff. It wasn't Halal Brothers, but it was kind of the same recipe, I guess. It was so good. I'm trying to figure out how to make that, but there's a lot of different spices that I need to find. So I'm nervous that I'll ruin my memory of it by trying to make it and screwing it up. So
that's yeah, I get that actually.
Yeah.
You don't want to ruin you don't want to ruin the memory of how good it used to taste. What's the favorite thing that you like to make?
One of my favorite things, so there's a bunch of things, but probably I would have to guess some sort of Parmesan recipe. So one of the things that I like to do, my roommate, who lives in New Jersey still, kind of taught me how to make really slow simmered tomato sauce. So take crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, and some pureed tomatoes. And then you just let it simmer for like 3 or 4 hours. You put in some basil, some garlic, some onions. You kind of brown those a bit. You let it simmer. And then I like making eggplant parm. So you take a raw eggplant, and the thing you have to do is you have to cut it real thin, and you got to salt it, and you got to sweat it. So take it's on one tray, and you put another tray on top of it to kind of really because eggplant, you just cut open eggplant, you taste it, it's really bitter. And that kind of bitterness can really overpower a dish.
Right.
So you got to sweat it out. And then once you're done sweating it out, you take it out, and then you kind of, the dredging, the egg and the flour and the panko breadcrumbs, and you fry it, and you kind of layer it up with that sauce, and you bake it, and you take it out, and it is just so good. It's actually probably better off the second day.
Yeah?
Yeah, it probably is.
Okay.
Trying to get into different things. One of the things that I like doing is kind of so there's a place in town here that sells all sorts of different types of ramen. But what I like to try to do is to make like some sort of pork or chicken to go in it and kind of make a broth and stuff
Wait,
like that.
don't look Jacob, you can't just make statements like that and then don't tell us the where unless you're trying. Do you got a secret ramen joint you're holding out on, man?
There's Bowl 91 in Appleton. That's a good place.
Facts.
Right.
Facts.
But there's also a place, and I was going to have it for my shout out, but I'll say it now. It's called White Dragon. So you keep going up Main Street right before you hit Murdoch. Okay. And it's a small Asian grocery store in there. And you go in there and there's just all different types of stuff, of noodles, of ramen, of different candies and stuff like that. It's like kind of stepping foot in a different world, and it's so cool. And so my sister, I hope she doesn't listen to this, but she's coming up here for her birthday, and for her birthday, I got her 10 different types of ramen, and they're all different types. So I like making ramen, but I like kind of spicing it up. Okay. So just, I don't know, it's kind of a hobby I got into lately.
White Dragon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right on Main Street. It's like right before Murdoch. You know that there's a sign for like a jewelry store or something? You look over to your right. It's right there. It's kind of tucked in back there. It's really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out.
Definitely.
Because I'm all about that. I'm a huge ramen lover. Cocktail or beer?
So depends on my mood. It depends on my mood. So if I'm, like you mentioned earlier in the show, just outside, at the park or something, or just wherever, and I don't have a backyard. I wish I did. I don't have one. Every beer. But one of my favorite cocktails is probably actually has beer in it. It's a lunchbox.
Oh. I literally just had an OBO's college flashback. And I think I started sweating a little. Bruh. Just saying. Hey, you us old school Titans out there know what I'm hollering about.
It's a amaretto beer, orange juice. My girlfriend swears by them. She absolutely loves them. So
I used to love them. It's like most things. If you love it too much,
get a taste aversion to it.
Is usually not a taste aversion. You usually have an episode. This is Wisconsin. There's a story that goes along with the lunchbox. And I might have one of those. Of course, I'm not going to share it with y'all. It's right up there with why my name is Timber. So some things just have to stay out there in the anonymous part of the universe. Bruh. Streaming.
So I was watching the Kenobi series. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I absolutely love Star Wars. My dad showed it to me. So he was really old school, and he has the 4, 5, and 6 on VHS.
Oh.
So I watched those growing up. I watched, 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3, and then I started watching TV shows. And Kenobi is probably, if you're a Star Wars fan, or even if you're not a Star Wars fan, or if you just know kind of the basic outline of the story,
right?
It's still really, really, really cool. And they did a really good job with it, in my opinion.
Okay.
Hayden Christensen's back. He plays Vader. And there are a couple flashbacks in there where he does pop back as Anakin, but I'm not gonna spoil it. It is really, really, really good.
All right. I have not checked it out, but I have seen the ads for it. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched a Star Wars movie in a really, really long time. And I'm gonna go with my favorite. If I'm right, it's Return of the Jedi. That was the one with the Ewoks, right?
Yes.
That to me, nothing beat the Ewoks. The Ewoks that was the best one. That was the best movie out of all of them. To me. Those dudes, I could run with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They were wild boys and girls.
Bruh. Another one I was watching is I've been watching. Is it fair to call it streaming? I don't know. I've been watching clips of The Sopranos, just on YouTube when I have like a spare minute.
That's streaming.
I guess you could call it that.
I think everything's streaming.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny because I want to watch The Many Saints of Newark. I haven't watched it yet, but James Gandolfini, who played Tony Soprano, had passed away in 2011, and his son Michael Gandolfini now plays Tony Soprano, a young Tony Soprano, in The Many Saints of Newark, and he looks just like him. Just like him. So it's pretty cool.
It's pretty okay. Anything else?
That's all I got in my mind for streaming right now, man.
Okay. Shop local.
All right. So there's a number of places. The White Dragon, obviously.
Right.
All your ramen needs or noodle needs. I haven't taken a crack at making pho yet. I want to. I'm a little bit nervous that I'll screw it up really bad.
Oh well, you're going to.
I know I am. That's
nonetheless,
inevitable. Yeah. So
I've tried it, and yeah, it didn't taste like my favorite pho place to go eat, but it is
Right.
what it is.
and I want to. I just want to take a crack at it. You know, Bex as well, steaks and stuff. My favorite way to cook a steak is reverse searing it. So you take it, you put it in the oven at like 250, and after you season it, and you just kind of let it sit there until it reaches, I think, 115 or something. Then take it out, put it on a super hot cast iron, just brown it on both sides. Make sure there's a nice crust on there.
Right.
And that's it. Let it sit.
That's it.
Cut her open. There you go.
Yes. My favorite, I love Beck's, but my favorite way to get access to Beck's meats is a meat raffle.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love a good meat raffle.
Yeah.
Can we? Yes, the meat raffle, meat bingo, whatever's there happen wherever at the local church around here.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm all about that. There's
love
something
that stuff.
about being able to just win
Yeah.
some steaks, tenderloins, whatever. It makes me happy.
I was at a meat raffle of all places in Shawano a couple months ago, and I thought, okay, I'll just buy a couple tickets. Probably not going to win anything, whatever. I've never won anything at a meat raffle before, but then I did. And I'm kind of kicking myself on it because I didn't see it was there. It was a whole pork loin or some bacon. And I was like, oh, geez. I picked the bacon.
Why are you mad about that?
I want to try pork loin. I don't know why. I just, because I know what bacon is. I love bacon. But I just want to try the pork loin. But it was really good. So you just put it, what I tried to do is I tried to like candy it. So just put some like syrup and some spices on it and throw it in the oven. I was kind of see what it's like because bacon makes a big mess. So I was like, okay, oven, maybe not mess. I take it out, still made a mess. Still really good though.
My wife cooks bacon in the oven and puts it on racks. And
Yep.
it's well done, and you don't have to watch it that closely.
Right.
It's good.
Oh yeah.
And to me personally, I think you made the right choice because let's be honest. If you won that anytime recently, have you seen the cost of bacon?
Oh yeah. Why I typically don't get it.
I'm just saying. I'm like, man, if I could win some bacon right now, ooh, that would be pretty good happiness.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Other place I have one more shout out. It's for Depub. It's right next to my apartment.
Oh, okay. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there.
I can't say I've probably gone into that establishment maybe just once.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know the people who do frequent that location, they're loyal.
Oh, they are loyal. They swear by it. They do.
No, it's its own church.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, hands down. Okay. Diversity.
So for me, that means kind of meeting people where they're at. Diversity of opinion, diversity of background, diversity of experiences, people coming from different walks of life. You don't know where someone's been, what they've done, the things they've seen, the jobs they've worked into. Actually sit down and talk to them. Oh, dropped my pen. And for that, I think kind of coming in with an experience of I grew up in the DC area, and then I lived in the Bronx, and then I moved out here and lived in Madison, kind of interspersed with it. There's kind of a different subset background that I've seen compared to some people who are on the county board who have just stayed, grown up in the area. And I'm not saying there's anything bad with that at all. No, there are so many different walks of life. There are people who have been teachers. There have been people who have been aid workers. There have been people who have been doctors, right? And then there's me who just happened to live at the right place at the right time. So it's kind of seeing those experiences that people have been through and kind of seeing where they've been and what their viewpoints from that are. And knowing that ultimately we live under a pretty small roof as a community. And we have to work with each other, because if we just keep, fighting each other and whatnot on, in committees or at boards or in commissions, we're not going to get very far. at all.
My thing with that is I don't like what we are truly fighting for, like, or fighting over, because to me, we're not fighting for anything. The fight is to create, to me, us and thems. And that's it. It's like creating false boogeymans. Like, this person is your enemy because of this, and therefore, and so you're on this team and I'm on this team, and this is how we're going to align our lives and vote and all these other things. When there's just consistent, real evidence that we are really all the same in so many ways, and that the little nuances, those little differences we may have nothing to do with the true foundational basics of life.
Oh yeah.
And so
sure.
I'm not for letting people to tell me what team I should be on or how I should function in what I'm associated with. Like, I'm trying to draw everybody in. It's like, I like a lot of different people. I like to do a lot of different things. And I'm always hopeful that more of us will open our eyes and realize, like, that we're being pushed to be on opposite teams.
And it's interesting because there are some people who have been on the county board for longer than I've been alive. I'm 24, and there are people who have nothing against them at all. I mean, it's public service. It's a thankless job. I mean, it's not salaried at all. It's a volunteer citizen legislature position, right?
Right.
And so, great for them for doing it. But there are, ultimately, and you can say just with any organization that, has been around for a long time, there's kind of a certain good old boys club aspect to things, right? You see that. I mean, whether it's, your local, I don't know, I play in a volleyball league, like local volleyball league, or a fishing group, or anything, all the way up. I mean, you see that, and that attitude is something that, it's something I've kind of had to deal with so far. I will say that people on the board have been very welcoming and very, very gregarious and saying, like, hey, you're learning about this and this and this. And I think for me so far, it's just been a learning experience and just kind of taking it as much as I can.
Right.
And trying to soak up as much. Because I know one thing, Timber, and that's that I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot, right? And so
it takes a lot to be able to admit that. Like, that to me, that's such a good place to come from.
And I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. I mean, ultimately, like, this is a super unique position where you can see how, like, there's been a discussion recently about special assessments, right? So somebody's street's all jacked up, and then they pave it over, and then somebody wonders, why did I get stuck with the bill? So your property valuation went up pretty high because somebody paid your road. And so, and I guess the other thing that I've thought, and I'm kind of getting into the sticks here, some of my experiences is, the thing that probably makes me angriest the most is people's tax dollars being spent inefficiently. So, for example, currently on the county level, we have one person who does payroll for 1,200 county employees. Doesn't sound super efficient.
Bruh.
That it doesn't. I mean, and that's a fix that the board as a whole needs to address and to look at, right? And so I think people work very hard. They work very hard to have their livelihoods to help, feed themselves and their families. The worst thing we can do as responsible citizen legislators is to spend it irresponsibly and not really care about other people's money. Because it's very easy to say, oh, look at this program, look at this project. It's like, well, we need to be considerate of the fact that we're dealing with other people's money here. It's not our money. And what's the best approach we can take to this?
My thing with government money, and where actually, my biggest, I don't even know what to call it. Because it's not really a gripe, but it's my whole thing with it is I don't like when people talk about government money from like they're trying to run a business. Government is to serve the people. spend the money and serve the people well. That's where I'm at with it. Like, I don't want frivolous spending, but I also don't want people to be misers and trying to hold on to the dollar or to make these cuts, and then you're not serving the people well. Let's not get confused about what the point of government is. Government is not here to make a profit. Government is here to serve the people. And that is where I have, I have a little bit of conflict about the whole deal of how some people talk about it. Like, and they're talking about it like, understand this, when you're talking about a business's job is to make profit, make money. That is it. And government's job is not. And they're two totally different things. So I'm always a little suspect when people talk about government from a space as if it's a business, because that's not its job.
Our job is to provide services.
That's right. It literally is to provide services.
Yeah. So county government is all dictated by Chapter 59 of state statute. And it's unlike a city or a village where you have home rule and you have more flexibility in the policy-making space. We don't really have a lot of flexibility in there. And we are very much defined by a subset of things that we are supposed to get out there. And I think, why not try to get the best services that we can out there? Because ultimately, something else we need to consider is we want this city, this community to be the best place to live and work as possible.
Yes.
And so in order to do that, we need to make sure that our parks are in good shape. We need to make sure that we have clean water and breathable air and whatnot, and making sure that we're getting to where we need to go. And so the services are essential. And I think letting those services kind of wither is a huge problem. I'll give you an example. Our highway department. We toured the highway department a couple of months ago, and there's black mold in the front of the highway department. And the problem is that the board at the time, I think about a decade ago, just didn't necessarily want to put in the investment to make sure that we had a good highway department, safe highway department. Turns out the building wasn't even waterproofed, I think, from the outside. And so we're going to have to pick up the tab for that. And that's a huge, it's the highway department, man. We're responsible for 41. We have to make sure that road is clear. There are billions of dollars that go through that road of people's businesses. They're trying to get from place to place. Yes. It is it's an economic artery. And so if we're just going to let our highway department just kind of fall apart there, not to mention the fact that it's a walking workers' comp case, that's going to be a huge issue, and we need to tackle that as soon as we possibly can. Take a look at the bridge. It's stuck. They had multiple opportunities to try to reinvest and get the bridge fixed now before it costs more money later.
That's the thing. That's another thing. Like, if anything didn't get shown right now, it's like, if you put it off, it never gets cheaper.
It's not going to get cheaper.
It's never going to get cheaper. If you put it off for the future, it's never going to be cheaper. And so, like, how many projects in local government now where they're forced to do it right now cost millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of more dollars than it would have when they originally came up with the project.
I have a whole book on it. You want to see it? I didn't write it. It was just a compiled report. Yeah.
And so, to me, that's not being responsible with taxpayer dollars.
No, it's not. It's not providing the best services we can, and it's not being responsible with other people's money. It's not. So, the highway department is another one that it kind of really rattles my cage. It does, because I looked around and there's some heavy equipment. We don't even have the spot to do undercarriage washes. When we're having so much corrosive salt build up there, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And so the idea, I know that's been bounced around, a fixed span bridge, I think that's a good idea because that's less moving parts. We would actually, I think the city of Oshkosh would inherit it from the State Department of Transportation because it would no longer be a drawbridge. So I think they were thinking about, I don't know if you've seen the bridge in Winneconne that goes over the, there's a bridge in Winneconne, it's a fixed span bridge.
I'm going to be honest, I ain't really ever driven through Winneconne.
It's a fixed span bridge out there, and that's kind of the idea of what they're trying to replace it with.
Okay.
So that's kind of the hope. And here's something else. Civic participation matters a
Big
lot
time.
in this. We have committees, commissions, and boards that all have space for civilian input and citizen spots there.
Absolutely.
The health board, the human services board, we have a diversity committee. We have all these spots where citizens can and should be going to, because if you aren't getting involved, you really don't have a right to complain.
Yes, I do. And to say that you don't have time, I'm always a firm believer that you make time for the things that you think are important.
Exactly.
You prioritize what's important to you. And I think it's important to prioritize your community and your local government.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many. I mean, we have, I don't know exactly which spots are open right now, but I mean, there are citizen spots on the Board of Adjustment. We're currently coming up with a committee for ARPA funding, right?
Yeah.
A strategy and outcomes committee, because we were given a whole pot of money. And it's like, okay, what do we do with this?
Right.
And so, I mean, that's a big task, because we've never really been given just like a lump sum like that and told, spend it. We've
Right.
never been told that. And so that presents a really big challenge for people.
Right.
And so those are the things that we have. And I would just challenge people to show up. You know, I have an email, I have a Facebook page. I have not gotten, I don't really get much from people, you know.
Well, now that you put it out to the KOSH listeners, we will put your email and Facebook page in the podcast notes, and KOSH listeners, do not hesitate to reach out to Jacob.
We have a lot of projects going on in local government that need citizen input. We do. And it's important that there's citizen input. Because if there's no citizen input, the ultimate, I mean, for example, if we're building, I don't know, like a park or something, and we don't hear any input from the neighborhood, the park's not going to be the best park it can be for the people who live in the neighborhood.
True. I'm big on, and I think what happens is I think there's an intimidation that you don't know enough to do these things. Like, I think sometimes our residents think you've got to be like an expert or know what you're talking. I'm like, I love what you said earlier, where you were very vulnerable in saying, I'm learning, I don't know yet. And I want to encourage the people out there that it's okay if you feel a certain way and you have an interest. It's okay to go in and not know,
right,
and learn as you go.
Right. And I'll say during the election in my county board district, only 113 people turned out to vote in the April election.
Bruh.
Out of each county board district is roughly about, I think, somewhere between 5,500 and 6,000 people. And that's embarrassing. I don't really have any other way to say it other than that's embarrassing. Civic participation, and I will say again and again and again, it matters. And showing up matters. People pay attention. And it's, you know, it does get disappointing to the fact that, you know, I had a conversation with the mayor of Neenah. I think that was a couple months ago, and I just asked him about some local government stuff, and he said I would have office hours, the former mayor of Neenah now, and nobody would show up. Right. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. When there's something that excites the community, you will hear from them 100%, as you should. Right. So,
here's what I'm going to tell you. Working for the mayor of Appleton, they show up.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
His office hours are popping.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can only imagine.
Yeah, there's people paying attention, and they got things to say.
Good.
It's a very informed and engaged community.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, it's something, because the district that I represent is unique because it has the university in it. And
yes.
So one of the things that, you know, you try to have is like, okay, what is, you know, kind of looking from that mindset. If you're a student here,
right.
We want, you know, once these kids graduate, we want them to stay. right?
We sure do.
We want them to stay. We want them to live here. We want them to work here. We want them, to stick around, for lack of a better word.
Yep.
And so from that perspective, how do we, as a unit of county government, how do we affect policy to make that happen, right? What do we have to do, right? Is it, other economic development and job opportunities? That's certainly something. Is it housing? Well, there's not a whole lot county can do with housing policy, but it certainly is something that the city and the state can do, and we can recommend that the city and state start looking at that. I know that there is in Wisconsin overall, there are housing shortages.
Yeah.
And so
Big
that's
time.
something that, especially for workforce housing, that is a huge issue. And that is something that, and that's one of the more frustrating things, is that we can't really do a whole lot on the county level about that, because we are I can show you Chapter 59 of state statute. It lists out everything we can and cannot do. And so you look at it and it's like, oh, they just kind of put us in a box and just kind of left us there. But there's space for creativity.
All right.
There is. And I would say that the current county executive is really trying his hardest to say, okay, like, how do we approach that? How do we get people to be involved, to stay engaged, to stay here too? Because we're in a pretty unique area,
Right.
as a county. And we have very rural areas. We have very urban areas. We have wetlands. We have suburbs. We have waterways. There's a lot. We are, from a geographical standpoint, we're pretty diverse. We have a lot of different communities where it's like, okay, I'm in a rural area. What's something that affects me? Broadband, right? I'm in an urban area. What's something that affects me? Clean water, right? I live in a marshland. What affects me is trying to navigate the DNR and EPA standards for that. So it's a pretty unique subset of challenges that we have to tackle. But I think citizen participation is certainly one. It's certainly one. And just please show up.
Facts. Community.
So I guess just kind of still talking about it. Look out for your neighbors. Look out for people who, like I said earlier, you never know. Your words have impact on people, right? Just saying hi to someone, or just, asking how their day was, it really matters to people. I've made an effort to know the people in my apartment building. And you get to hear people's different stories. You get to hear kind of where they came from, and you'll be surprised that some of the backgrounds are similar to you and some are very different than you. I'll give you an example. Our county corporate counsel, so that is like the county's attorney, right? She went to Fordham Law. I thought I'd never find another Fordham Ram out here. I never thought I would, but nevertheless, here we are. It's pretty cool. So kind of seeing and meeting people where they're at, kind of hearing their story, regardless of where they come from or who they are, it's important. It matters, because when you're making a decision, you can factor in all those things together. And that's one of the things that I have found to be, and like I told you, I'm learning, and I know that I'm 24, and there are people who have had much more expansive and holistic life experiences than I've had.
Yeah.
And so learning that and seeing that and listening to people and kind of being like a sponge and just soaking in as much kind of information as I can,
Right.
is super important. That's the tack I decided to take, and I still want to take it. So yeah.
I think that's a great way forward. And I think it's a path to success, is to just, and even those who have a great amount of experience, let's say they have been on the board for the 20 to 30 years, I still want them to be life students.
Sure. You're always learning through life.
Always learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want them to constantly, I want them to not, I call them Wisconsin know-it-alls. Wisconsin has its own kind of know-it-all. That's for doggone sure. And then, so I'm all for the person I hear that's in that space to be a lifelong learner.
Oh yeah. There's always something new you can learn every day.
All the time.
And
from anyone.
You don't have to be in a classroom.
No,
you
and they don't have to necessarily be the definition of what some people call successful.
Exactly.
Okay. We're going to move into the next segment. And
Sounds good.
next segment is the KOSH Hidden Gems. This is your opportunity to share about something in the KOSH or around the KOSH that you think is a gem that you don't think maybe people don't know about, or maybe there's an aspect of it that people don't know about.
Sure. I'm a runner, so I'm a recovering D1 athlete. In college, I ran cross country and track, and that was pretty brutal. But I can say I did it.
Yep.
The running trails around here. This is a very runnable city, and especially along the river and along the lake. I challenge people to go out there if you haven't. You don't have to run a million miles per hour. I mean, you can just walk. But I mean, there's some beautiful nature and landscape around here, and I would challenge people to take advantage of that. There really is. Around Menominee Park, up the Fox River. I mean, the trails and the parks that we have in this community are something I think we should really value and treasure, because we really do have some beautiful areas around here. We really, really do.
Yes, we do. And you know what? Those can't be replicated.
No, they can't.
They're ours.
Right. and it's our job to take care of them.
Facts.
Right. And so being good stewards of, what we have as a community, making sure it's clean, making sure it's well tended to, it's really important. And so I know that the Parks Department is hiring summer help. So if anyone wants to help out with the Parks Department, by all means, I know that there's can help keep our parks clean.
I'm going to assume they probably have a shortage, because I just know there's a shortage of parks.
There's a shortage of everything everywhere.
Yes, there is a shortage of everything everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
All right. What's the KOSH need?
Well, this is going to sound a little bit kind of off the wall, but I would say a late night bodega or deli. Bruh. So I'm a night owl, and I sometimes like to cook for myself at night. Other times I'm just a little bit lazy, but having that there I think would be pretty cool.
Are you kidding? That is not that off the beaten path. That I 100% look. In my young days, I would have killed for that. But now I'm not up late enough to appreciate it. But nonetheless, I would appreciate it in case that one time a year that I decide.
Yeah.
That I'm going to stay up late and I'm going to be out and about, kicking it in the KOSH. Then I can go to the bodega and get me a doggone amazing sandwich.
Don't you think? Like a chopped cheese or something?
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. You know what? That's different and fantastic. And KOSH listeners, my entrepreneurs out there, you heard it. I think that's possible.
I think it is.
I
think it is.
Yeah. And you know what? If we could get that on Main Street, that would even be better.
Plenty of spots open.
I think there's a few.
Yeah.
All right, Main Street Bodega.
Love it.
Okay. Next segment, the Naughty/Heroes Corner. So the Naughty/Heroes Corner is your opportunity to nominate somebody, something, an organization, whatever you want it to be, to the Naughty /Heroes Corner, and to share why.
So for the Heroes Corner, I'm going to go with heroes.
Okay.
And my hero for that is the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the CVB, and Amy Albright.
Oh, my God.
And the work that she does, I mean, she is a fantastic ambassador for this community. She really, really is. And, I mean, I'm kind of in awe of the work that she does, because she just kind of makes magic happen.
Never lied. Oh, big shout out to Amy. Amy has an episode.
Yes, I did see that.
Amy is fire. What I would like to say is, and Amy is everywhere.
She is.
Like, when you least expect it.
Right.
Boom.
She's right there. I was on a jog a couple of nights ago, and I just kind of saw her from across the street. She was headed over to Leech for Waterfest. So she's everywhere.
She is everywhere. Yeah. And has a great team.
She does.
And I love what she does with her interns.
Yes.
They're so good. Right. So, Amy, big shout out here from the KOSH and our man, Jacob. Love that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Definitely a hero, KOSH hero. Okay. So, we're going to take a quick ad break again, real quickly here.
Hi. I'm Dawn Gulke, the Executive Director of CASA of the Fox Cities. Science proves that one consistent adult can change the story of a child. Could that one person be you? Become a court-appointed special advocate. Build a relationship with a child, help identify their needs, and give that child a voice in a process that can otherwise feel lonely. Contact us today. Children who have experienced abuse and neglect can't wait. Learn more about CASA of the Fox Cities at casafc.org or call Leah at 920-257-4733.
All right. And now it's that time, y'all. You know what time it is. Let me help you out with that. Every time it makes me happy. I don't know why, but every time it is time for the topic of the week. And topic of the week, our guest always chooses the topic of the week. And we're going to say, Jacob, what's our topic of the week?
Local government.
Local government. All right, let's jump in.
So the Winnebago County Board has 36 supervisors. There are 36 districts that are cut up around the county. And I know you talked to Ralph more recently, and he's the supervisor from the town of Algoma. Yes. And Ralph's a great guy. He's awesome. So
Ralph is fantastic.
He's also one of those people who's also everywhere.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
I don't know how he does it.
I don't know how he does it.
But kind of seeing the fact that local government is always around you. I mean, when you wake up in the morning, your water bill, the heating bills, all that stuff, a lot of that is dictated by taxation. A lot of that is dictated by fees, public services, stuff like that. So local government is always around you in a way that the state and federal government is more kind of high level. Local government is kind of affecting you most personally on your day-to-day. That's what I'd like to talk about today.
Okay.
So one of the other things that we've seen is capital improvement project season. And that always generates a lot of buzz and conversation. And what we see there is there are a lot of projects that either are routine for maintenance, so some roads, right? And the cost of those can get really, really high. We have one of the most expensive milling rates in the state.
What does that mean?
So milling rates is basically when you mill down pavement and then repave it over. So the cost per, I don't know what the unit cost is, but it's expensive. And kind of getting access to these services, so we have, the good roads and whatnot, that also can be pretty expensive. And the staffing for that can also be tough to find. And what we see is that some of these projects will take longer to complete. Some of these projects which are enforced by state statute, which we didn't really plan on doing, but we have to do it. There's a number of those. But the county executive every year puts out a 5-year capital improvement projects plan. Right now we're in the 2022 to 2026 plan. And what we see with that are a lot of projects that I think the public should have input on. Specifically, there is a project going on right now at the airport. And that is to build about 20 little hangars for Cessnas. Right? And so that space, there's been a lot of conversations like, well, okay, what could that space be used for? Could it be used for a business? Could we lease out the space? But what we're going to do is we're going to build these hangars, at least that's what the plan is. And there's been some conversation about rent and the payback period. So the payback period is about 33 years for a hangar that lasts roughly 70 years before we would need to take it down and rebuild it. The rent, in my opinion, is a bit low. But for that, I'm just highlighting a project that people should have input on and people should be talking about. There are a number of them. There are certain things. I know the coroner's office, we were kind of expanding into a medical examiner's office.
Wait, can I ask a question about the hangars?
Yes.
Okay, so here's my thing. These are hangars that are going to be located at our airport.
That's correct, yeah.
That airport doesn't do commercial flying, correct?
No, it doesn't. It hasn't since 2007.
So why all the hangars?
Well, that's what I asked, right? And so, yeah.
I mean, and trust me, I get it. I'm not trying to knock nothing. I'm not, trying to push it. I'm pleading ignorance in this case.
Right. So yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, because
right?
I'm just thinking like we don't do commercial flights, and the only thing I can think of is EAA, and I still wouldn't think you need like that many hangars for EAA. So what am I missing?
So basically, even still without the commercial flights, Oshkosh's airport is the third busiest in Wisconsin, which I didn't know until recently.
Actually, I can get that now.
Yeah.
Because we're probably, there's business, there's Oshkosh Corp, there's
there's a lot of that. There's Fox Valley Tech, which is there, and if you have an opportunity to take a look at their airport campus, I definitely would suggest that because it's really cool, all the stuff they do there. So they have aircraft that are kind of taken apart. They're teaching future mechanics and pilots, and it's just a really cool thing that I think provides such an invaluable asset to the community and whatnot, and providing real experience for jobs that people will go on to have and careers that people will go on to have. There's also, and this is really cool, Basler. Right. And those are, what they do is they take those 80-year-old DC-3s, those old DC-3s and C-47s, and they breathe new life into them, which, because I'm a huge aviation geek, and I just think that's so cool because it's a plane that is getting up there, getting long in the tooth, and you're kind of breathing new life into it. And I just think that's a really interesting thing. But for the T hangar specifically, there used to be hangars there, now they're gone. So the other big component of the airport is general aviation. So people who own planes, they buy used planes, whatnot, stuff like that. But they're definitely, it's like, what should we do with that space? Should a company come out and should they build a hangar there that'll provide jobs for aviation maintenance? We already have a couple firms out there that do that. We have Myers, we have Sonics. Sonics is really cool because what they do is they have these kit airplanes that you can build in your garage. Now, I park my car in a public parking lot behind my apartment building, and I think building a plane there would really make the OPD scratch their head and be like, what is this kid doing back there? But those things you can definitely so they're kit aircraft, right? They're also doing, and this is really cool, UAV drones. So they implement some AI stuff into the drones and whatnot. So it's really cool research and development that they do. We're also getting an e-vertiport. So these are electric helicopters that will come in, and right now it's proof of concept and experimental and research and development. Basically, the thing is that what can an electric helicopter do? What can it do? Well, what are its capabilities? Can it lift things? Can it lift people? Can it take people places? Those kinds of things and questions that R&D is asked. There are also some, I know that there is a Christian relief service that flies people around. They do missionary work. They do a lot of stuff there. There's Basler Flight Services. There's Oshkosh Truck. There's EAA. And EAA has more of a year-round presence than a lot of people would think.
Right.
And so there is, they have their own kind of operation over there. But, and the question is okay, so we build the hangars, more people would come. But then the thing is, there's a 33-year payback period. We have a lot of boaters in this community, so why don't we build more boat slips? And that's kind of the conversation, the back and forth that's been going on with that. Right. But I would highly encourage that people go to the facilities committee meetings and the airport committee meetings, especially if you live around that area, and because that affects you personally with noise and working hours and stuff like that. So I would highly recommend to show up to those. Because they've had discussions about that. And that's another thing. You will hear people who will say, and again, issues that very much affect them. I remember before I got on the board, I was listening to a board meeting, and this one woman, she came up and she said, well, there's been this development that's going on across the street from my house, and there's a street light that shines right into the bedroom window. Right. And so for that, she's like, I don't really know where else to go. The county board green-lighted this project as part of a public project. Can you please address this? And then I think, from there you go to the planning and zoning committee and whatnot. It can all sound very, very dry, but it's people just like you and me who are making these decisions. There are people who have been truck drivers. There are people who have been teachers. There are people, you don't have to have a PhD in public administration. Sorry, Mike Ford. I don't know if he has a PhD or not, but he's a great guy to make these decisions. Right. And the vast majority of people don't have that. And so it's tackling those real world problems just in a conversation like this. We may have some budget documentation. We may have some people from the UW system, sometimes go up and talk. We have UW extension as well to help the agricultural component. And so the job of a county supervisor is you're not an expert. No one told you needed to be an expert, right? But you're there to serve the community as the community's representative at the table.
Right.
Because there are experts. There are experts on milling rates. There are experts on building hangars. There are experts on, I don't know, the color of algae in the water, right? Those things happen, right? But at the same time, it's, there's still that citizen aspect of it. And I think the citizen aspect of it is probably the most important. And if we don't have that, then eventually we're going to get to a spot where, it's just kind of on autopilot. And that doesn't really work because then people are frozen out, So I would definitely say I think the biggest takeaway and challenge is to show up. There have been communities where nobody shows up and the same people have been around for the past 45 years and nothing ever changes. And it's the same kind of club, and they're more than happy to let projects go unanswered, and they're more than happy to let things kind of wither away because there hasn't been citizen input. Citizen input spurs people into action. It spurs local government into action a lot more than you would think. And I think it's very important that people get involved in the conversation. It has to be.
Facts. Yeah, that's
right,
it.
yeah.
It's facts.
Well, because it's... So I'll kind of give you the background of what happened, how I got to the board. I never really wanted to run for anything. I really didn't. It was just like, oh, that's like a bunch of people who have this ambition and whatnot. And I was like, that's just wasn't for me. But my local county board seat, they do redistricting every 10 years. And this was a redistricting year.
Right.
I got drawn into it. I was like, oh, I got a new district now. Oh, interesting. And there was an issue on the county board. I forgot exactly what it was. There have been so many. I think I remember what it was. It was about a conversation about reducing the size of the board. And for me, more people and more input, the better. We used to have 42 supervisors. Now we're down to 36. I think the proposition was to cut it by 2. There was a proposition 10 years ago to cut it in half. And so personally, I'm not a fan of, cutting down the number of representatives you have. I think we should have more representation. And what happened was I noticed there was no supervisor for my district. Not there. It turns out that since last September, my district had never had a supervisor. And they were trying to fill, they were trying to do an appointment. They were trying to fill it, and nobody stepped forward. So I stepped forward. I was like, okay, fine. If no one's going to do this, I guess I'll do it. And so, because it just really irritated me that nobody there was there to speak for my neighbors and my community and myself. Like no one was there. There was no seat at the table there. So I applied for the vacancy, and the chairman at the time said it's a little bit too close to the election. I'd love to appoint you because you're literally the only person who has expressed interest in this. But let's have the election play out. So I thought, okay, yeah, sure. Somebody will probably file to run, right? Nobody filed. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, are you serious? Are you trying to push me into this? So,
you know what? I call that divine intervention.
So I filed as a write-in and I won.
There you go.
And my conversations are, it's a relatively small, I think it's the smallest or one of the smaller county board supervisor districts when you look at the map. There are some supervisor districts that are just like massive. They have these, like there's a friend of mine who represents kind of the whole northwestern part of the county. It's like Wolf River and Winchester in those areas. I mean, it's like 25 minutes to drive from end to end. For me, it's like a 5-minute walk. So, but that being said, though, I started having conversations with people in the district. I started going door to door. I started talking to people. And the unique challenge about my district was that there's a lot of college kids in it. And telling them, it's like, first of all, do you know what the county board is? And a lot of people don't. There have been people who have lived in Oshkosh their entire lives, and they're like, I have no idea what the county board is. I don't care. Why are you in my yard? Right?
Yeah. That might be the most Oshkosh statement ever. There's so much facts that's stated in that.
So those conversations, it kind of took and say like, hey, do you know that, there's a group of 36 people that are elected to serve on the county board, and this district's currently empty. And they're like, no, okay, right. But for some people, it was like, yeah, that's an issue. And so having those conversations with people, talking to them about representation, talking to them about what county government does, your property taxes, that's a big one, right? Every single year, the highways, right, the waterways, the buoys, we handle all of that. And so we're also the chief the way they reorganized the UW system in 2017, we are now the fiduciary guarantor for UW Fox Cities. Right.
Okay.
So there's that as well. That's another thing as well. We also help do the some of the other items there. And what I would say is that those conversations were very, very helpful with people, because ultimately what it boiled down to was the fact that we need representation there, and we got representation there. And so far it's just been a learning experience and saying like, hey, from my district's perspective, X and Y affect us the most. So the big things are education, jobs, housing, clean water, clean air, that kind of stuff. That bridge on Jackson Street, which is kind of stuck in the up position, that's nothing the county can do about that, but I would highly encourage people to go to city council meetings and have their input on that. So that really affects people. For me, it's a running route, but for other people, that's how they get to work.
Absolutely.
So it matters, and I would highly encourage people to show up and get that thing done.
What were those other two committees you mentioned previously?
Yeah, so for the airport one, I would say that people should go to the aviation committee and the facilities committee. The facilities committee deals with all the committees that the county has in its all the buildings and grounds that we own, right? So, for example, the sheriff's office, right? The highway department, right? The county jail. All that stuff is owned by the county, and we have a committee that deals with, how do we deal with maintenance? How do we deal with preventative maintenance? How do we deal with new construction? All that kind of stuff. So I think his name is Mike Elder there, who's the director of the facilities committee. Does a fantastic job. He does really well. So that's a lot to keep track of. It really is.
No, and I'm basically asking, because I'm going to assume that it's published. So it's got to be publicly.
It's all public record.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would like, if there are internet links for those committees?
Yes, there are.
I would like to include those in this podcast notes.
Yes.
Because we don't want to just tell people, because that's half the battle. I think as a regular resident, that you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know where to look.
Exactly.
And so people say, hey, you should. And then it's like, and then they don't tell you the how or the where. And so whenever people bring up topics like this on the KOSH, I always want to try to be able to provide the where.
Right. That's another thing. And it's another big one. The county website is a bit of a beast.
I think all the regional local government websites are all like, they're all a little.
And I think actually the county that's done the best job is Calumet County. They across the lake, they have actually a fairly workable county website. Ours looks like it was done with Microsoft Paint. It probably was.
It might have been written in DOS.
Probably. It was probably done on Windows 98 too. So, it's all desupported and stuff like that. And you see, but the IT department, Patty Francoeur, she does a fantastic job there too.
Shout out to Patty, Patty's family.
So she does a really, really good job. The other thing I would say is that, it's really good to look at those committees and those commissions and those boards, because if you don't, that's where you kind of roll up your sleeves and have those deep conversations about those agenda items. That's where the real work gets done. And that's where we bring in the subject matter experts. Say, okay, what do you think about this roundabout or whatever, that we're responsible for replacing? Can you talk about that? Can you talk about what an alternative would possibly be? What about a four-way intersection, that kind of stuff? So, accident rates, stuff like that. I know that on the Judiciary Committee, we have the sheriff. He gives a report every month about what's going on with law enforcement that the sheriff's department particularly is involved with doing. And so traffic stuff, overdoses, stuff like that. That's all stuff that we learn, and that's stuff that it's just kind of take in and be like, okay, this is something to consider as we go forward. So it's pretty cool.
Shout out to Sheriff Motz.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. Hands down. All right. Anything else?
That's really, that's the expanse of it. My email is jacob.floam@co.winnebago.wi.us. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but for any county related matters, please, reach out. I can refer you to your local supervisor, refer you to a committee of jurisdiction, or I'd be able to try to find the best answers for the department heads and the questions that I can. But just trying to keep people in the loop. It's a challenge.
I'm going to say we're going to try to. We will include as much as we can in the podcast notes. So I'm going to hit Jacob up for all of the links, and we will put as many links as possible in the podcast notes.
Sounds good. Excellent, man.
All right. That was good. That was really, really good. Now it's time. This is time where we start winding up. KOSH listeners, thank you so much for giving us your time, spending time with us. We appreciate it, and we are a work in progress. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us and tell us what you're thinking. Are we doing a good job? Are there things we could do better? Do you want to be a guest? Any of those things. So don't hesitate to reach out to us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. Number 2, you have heard our ads today. If you would like to do an ad right now, because I'm in a learning phase, let me know. I'm not charging right at this point, but reach out, let us know. Let's do an ad. Let's do something cool. I want to put some breaks into the show, so that's important. Next, I would love, we do a lot of shout outs here on the KOSH. That's what makes it nice and personal and local. If you would like to send in some shout outs, please don't hesitate to do so. You can just call us at 920-385-9298. Once again, that is 920-385-9298. We will play your shout outs live on the show. I think that'll be super awesome. So I'm waiting for the first shout outs. Come on, y'all. Y'all do this to me every time. All right. And then lastly, but not leastly, do not forget we have KOSH gear. If you are interested, there's KOSH t-shirts, KOSH hats. I think it's the hot farmers market gear, personally. Well, at least I'm going to keep saying that until somebody proves it to be true.
You gotta rep the brand.
That's right. Well, no, I'm just saying you got to rep locally.
Yeah.
And what's more local than the KOSH? Yeah. All right. So, holler at me. Just email us or send a message. You can send a voicemail even and let us know that you have an interest in getting a nice The KOSH hat or t-shirt. So, once again, we appreciate you. Now, you already know it's that time of the show. It's my favorite time of the show. It is shout out time. All right. Jacob, what you got? Who you shouting out?
I'm going to shout out Jay Schaefer. He is the Grand Knight for the local Knights of Columbus chapter. We're having a Brat Fry today. So if you happen to have a time machine, go back in time and see if you can go to a Brat Fry on Saturday, June 18th, 2022 on Festival off 21. Then definitely. But Jay does such good work. He works really hard. I know he works at the IT department over at the county. And he is a great man. He's a great leader. And we do a lot of charity work, specifically the Boys and Girls Club and Father Cars over right near the exit on 21. So we recently had our bridge walk. That's definitely a really good thing to help raise money for that organization and everything they do. They also partner pretty closely with COTS. I know that one of the residences that COTS has for housing actually used to be owned by Father Cars. So they had an agreement, and they sold one of them to COTS. So that's my shout out for today. Jason's an awesome guy, and I just want to tell him to say hi.
Oh. Okay, that's it. You're only going to do one?
The other one actually was for Amy, but I mentioned that earlier. So
fair enough. Hey.
I'll shout out my girlfriend too because she's wonderful. So.
Oh, you got it. That's a smart man. Smart man. All right. This week's shout out. I want to send a shout out to my man, Chief Tarman. Chris Tarman has been moved up to acting chief at UWO. He's one of my best friends. Hey, congratulations there,
Congrats.
Chief.
Yeah.
That's a big doggone deal. We appreciate all the work you do. That is one hardworking man.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Shout out to all the fathers. Tomorrow's Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
And
Weeks.
There you go. And you know what? Dads do not get enough love. I'm just going to call it out. Like, as a dad, you know what? Moms get all the love. Dads, every once in a while, it's like, all right, dad's okay. Dad's cool. Look, dads work hard.
My dad's my best friend.
Oh,
He is.
that is awesome.
He lives on the other side of the country, but he's my best friend. So.
All right. You know what? My dad is... Like he walks on water as far as I'm concerned. He is the salt of the earth. He's the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. Yeah. And he kept his head down and he just worked hard and took care of his family and loved us. And so big shout out to my pop. I appreciate you, Pop. And all the other fathers out there taking care of their families, doing their business. You know this. Y'all get love on the KOSH, y'all. If ain't nobody else out there doing it, the KOSH is doing it. All right. And then my last shout out is actually, sometimes you have to work with customer service. Like people always talk about their customer service isn't as good as it used to be, or that it's lacking, or what you're getting. And when you have exceptional customer service, I want to make sure I shout it out. So my man, Shai Long over at Bergstrom, this dude.
Oh, I know that guy.
You know him?
Yeah.
That dude is fantastic.
Yeah, he does an awesome job.
Oh, look, Shai Long looked out. He answered the questions. He made it comfortable. Look, I have to accept what the bill is. So I'm not happy with the bill, but I'm happy with the service.
There you go.
But I'm not mad at the bill. I get it.
There
But nonetheless, Shai Long, you are a fantastic individual and you do great work. So, hey, shout out to Shai Long. Okay. We are on to the last part of the show. Okay, and the last part of the show is this. You got an A, B, and C.
Okay.
All right. You can, A, give us some words of wisdom.
All right.
B, tell us what would yourself today tell your 12-year-old self. C, both, all of the above.
I guess I'll go all of the above.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
So I guess words of wisdom I got, being really young, it sounds a little ironic. Show up to stuff. Show up to stuff. Volunteer. Get involved. Show up to stuff. Everybody's got things they're passionate about, so show up to those things. Whether it's something you may not thought you have time for, make time for it, right? Show up to stuff and don't be afraid to use your voice and to give your opinion on something because it matters. And like I said, if you don't get involved, especially on the local level, you don't have a right to complain. People need to get involved one way or another. Either if you're spreading awareness or you're sitting on a citizen committee. Look, I get it. Running for something is not everybody's cup of tea because you open yourself up to a lot of scrutiny, right? But you can serve on these citizen committees. You can spread awareness about these things. You can do all of that stuff. You can be very involved in your community. I think when they have an approach to government or local government, it's like, oh man, that means I got to run for something. No, you don't. You don't have to. You can make as much of an impact as a citizen as you can as an elected. 100%. Probably even more, to be honest with you, right? Yes, as an elected, you can vote on things, but as a citizen, you're the one who can raise awareness. You're the one who can whip the public into action. You can do all of that. So I would say show up. Don't be afraid to show up. Don't be afraid to speak out. No matter where you are, show up. The next thing I would say is, words of wisdom to my 12-year-old self. Don't stick your finger in that socket. No, but be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, man. Right? Be afraid to do things that you think that you aren't capable of doing. Don't be afraid to do that. Step out and do them. You are a lot stronger than you think.
That was good.
Thanks, man. I enjoyed that. That was awesome.
Like that?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay. You know what I call this?
What's that?
A fire episode. The KOSH.